Hey guys, this is Post-Production Pi here with another Lightroom 4 edit slash mixology tutorial for you guys. And in this tutorial, we're going to be covering number 35, the Stylized Color Whimsical Yellow mixology that we have here in the Lightroom 1.1 preset system. Now, of course, we're going to start by telling you guys the situations where we like to use this preset. We're going to go over how to create this preset using Lightroom 4 Preset System Mixology. And lastly, for those of you that aren't using the Lightroom 4 preset system, we'll teach you guys how to create this effect using the standard Lightroom 4 adjustment sliders. Alright, so let's select the Whimsical Yellow preset and kind of talk through what it does exactly. And the Whimsical Yellow is actually very similar to Whimsical Green, except that we're adding tone-on-tone yellow versus green. Now, in addition, what this effect is doing, what this mixology is doing, is basically adding contrast by pulling down blacks as opposed to adding contrast in midtones and highlights. This kind of lends to preserve more of the correct skin tones and highlight detail or midtone highlight detail in kind of the skin tones, as opposed to what contrast would do, which basically like adding tons of contrast in just overall in the entire image. In addition, we're softening up a little bit of that midtone detail as well to kind of create a nice glow to the image. Alright, we're going to hit backslash to check out the before and afters, and we're going to talk through exactly which situations we like to use this mixology. Now let's pull up our film strip. Now this preset is actually a bit more versatile than the Whimsical Green because essentially we can use this preset over any image that we just want to basically brighten and warm up. So we'll find that it'll really work on virtually anything. So let's take this image of our lovely model out in the field. We're going to apply the Whimsical Yellow preset to it, and then all we're going to do is basically make adjustments to our white balance and our temperature, or our white balance and our exposure. So I'm just going to pull up exposure just a bit more, and then we'll just pull down the temperature just a titch. I might add just a little bit more pinks to it. Actually, we'll add a little pinks and a little bit more yellow. So we can see that it does a really great job of just adding some nice warmth to our images, kind of making a very soft but still high contrast look to the overall image. Let's keep going and see what else we can find. Again, I like using this type of effect a lot on outdoor natural lit shots, particularly in nature type settings. It works very well in those settings. So let's select this image. We're going to once again select the Whimsical Yellow preset, and this image is a little bit underexposed to begin with, and we know that our preset brings our standard exposure up by +1. So if this image was basically +1 below, we're going to take this up to 2 and we'll see where we're at. And 2 might be a little bit high because it was probably not underexposed by 2 stops, but maybe like a half stop. Again, from here I would make a couple of tweaks to my white balance just by increasing tint just a little bit and temperature just a little bit to warm it up a tiny bit more. And again, here's the before and here's the after on this setting. So that's a really nice effect, especially you see in these kind of field settings. Let's take a look and see if there's another one. I think it'll work really well with this one again. This kind of once more again the field thing. Let's find something that is a little bit different. I actually think it would look awesome in this setting. Because again, once again, this setting is shot natural. It has a lot of nature type colors already in it, yellows and greens and everything. And it should look really nice with the Whimsical Yellow applied to it. And we see again, we get a really nice warm tone just with one single click. And that looks actually pretty dang good where it's at right there. Alright, let's see if there's any others I want to apply this effect to. Let's go down a little bit. Once again, it would work on so many of these images that, it really doesn't matter what we're choosing on these. Let's select this one. This is that downtown shot. I'm going to reset this out because this is the actual shot that we had to start with. So let's select Whimsical Yellow, and then what we'll do is again brighten it up to where we should be. We're going to pull it down just a tiny bit. Whoops, that's not. There we go. Okay, so again, we have kind of a nice yellow look over that image. Again, for all these field shots, it would totally work just fine as well. And let's use this image right here that we actually used to demonstrate the preset. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is actually correct this crop because it's actually bugging me because it's not straight. So let's correct that right now. I'm just hitting R to get my crop tool, and we're good right there. Now, because this preset is essentially based off of the Whimsical Green preset, it just has different color toning, I'm going to show you guys a really simple way to create mixology recipes based on other mixologies. So we're going to select Whimsical Green, and then all we're going to do with 2 clicks is we're going to select that, and we're going to drop down to color toning, and we're just going to change the color toning to tone-on-tone yellow. And we're done. That's it. We've created our mixology. If you guys wanted to save this out, which you wouldn't need to because this is already included in the 1.1 preset, you'd go to Save Your Preset, check all except for White Balance, lens profile correction, transform, and chromatic aberration, because once again those are included in the standard import preset, and white balance is something that you'd adjust on every image. Select the My Mixology folder and create your preset name based on whatever you like, and then hit create. But this is included under the 1.1 update under Whimsical Yellow number 35. So if you don't have the preset system, let's go through and create the same effect by dialing in each setting manually with the Lightroom 4 sliders. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-R one more time. We're going to now shrink our left panel by hitting F7. We're going to shrink our film strip by hitting F6. So once again, let's start with our biggest adjustments first, and the first adjustment we're going to make is to brighten up our image, because I know we're going to actually pull down the overall kind of blacks and everything like that in a second. So we want to brighten up everything right now. Temperature looks pretty good where it's at right now. I'm going to save that for a small micro adjustment later on. Contrast looks great. What we're going to do is drop down to highlights. I want to pull down my highlights because they're a little bit too strong. I want to bring down those highlight tones. Again, we're going to bring down the shadow tones to about -30 as well, and we're going to pull down whites to -30 as well, because what this is going to do is basically we're pulling down shadows and blacks to bring some contrast in the image, and we're pulling down highlights and whites just to kind of bring down those tones, just to make our highlight tones a little bit less potent, if you will. So let's go down to blacks now, and let's drop our blacks down to -60, just like we did in the Whimsical Green tutorial. Now we're going to go down to clarity, and we're going to go down to -10 once again, and -10 is going to create kind of an overall just slight glow / softening effect. Don't go too low on clarity, because it will basically over soften your image and it's going to look really bad. But -10 looks great right there. We're going to do a little bit of desaturation by increasing vibrance and then decreasing saturation to -20. So we get just a light desaturation type look. Alright, now from here we're going to drop down to actually our split toning panel. And for split toning, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our yellows this time. So I want to go to around, let's say 50, 55-ish. And then we're going to dial in basically our saturation. We're just going to pull it down to where we think is about appropriate. I think 20, 25 is good. We're going to do the same thing with our shadows. Once again, we're doing tone on tone, so you can just dial up the hue to basically the same exact setting too. So we get yellow as well in the hue and the shadows. You could type it in if it's too difficult to select. And then we're going to add a little bit less of that saturation in the shadows basically. We'll keep balance where it's at right now, and then what we're going to do next is go to our detail panel. We're going to dial in our standard sharpening settings. So let's take sharpening up to about 70. Let's do our standard first, and let's see if we need to make adjustments beyond that. So we're going to take it and dial in our standards, which is 70, 1.5, 10, and 30, which is a nice job of overall sharpening without sharpening too much of the fine detail, like in the pores on the skin as well as in noise in the image. And that looks great where it's at. Let's do one last thing and dial in our lens vignetting before we go and actually correct our white balance and everything. So for lens vignetting, again, we're going to zoom back out. We want to create a nice even tone from edge to edge. So we're just going to create a +30 and then 30 midpoint to kind of brighten up the edge and pull it all the way throughout the image. Alright, that was great right there. All we're going to do now is dial in the actual temperature that we want, and I'm going to warm it up just a titch by adding some magenta to it, as well as warming up the overall image. So we're just going to pull it up a little bit so we get a nice kind of warm and kind of pinkish hue to the overall tones and everything in the skin. Okay, if we feel like the highlight tones are a little bit strong, you can always pull down the exposure just a titch. I think at 0.8 it looks right about right there. Alright guys, so that's great. That is how we're going to dial in those settings manually with the Lightroom 4 adjustments. So let's check out the before and the after. I have a really nice yellow on yellow toning to our image, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. You guys see how easy it is to create mixology recipes based on previous mixologies. So we only went to 2 clicks to create that effect, whereas it took us 5 minutes or so to go through each additional adjustment to make those sliders and everything like that, and to create the effect manually. Alright guys, so we'll see you guys with the next tutorial.